Current DRB agendas are available by calling our DRB hotline at 818-548-3171 or by visiting our website at www.ci.glendale.ca.us. A handout describing the procedures of the meeting, possible board decisions, and DRB reconsideration and appeals is available at the table by the front door. Please note that appeals must be filed within 15 calendar days of the DRB decision date. The chairperson may reorder agenda items at their discretion. Roll call. Mr. Ellis.
Present.
Mr. Insua is absent. Ms. Palmer.
Here.
Mr. Simonian.
Present.
Mr. Yu is absent. Report regarding the posting of the agenda. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall at or before 5 p.m. on May 10th of 2012. Oral communications. Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to speak on an item not a part of the agenda?
I have no slips.
Any cards? Nope. Okay. At this point, we don't have any staff announcements. However, staff would like to suggest that we have one set of minutes to approve for April 19th of this year. We'd like to bump that up to the start if possible.
You know, unfortunately, I just realized
we can't. Okay.
Like to, but we can't.
You're right.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Good shot. All right.
So we're down to our case this evening. It's PDR 1203550 at 2063 Aaron Way.
Thank you. Mr. Riza.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the Design Review Board. The next case, actually, the only case on today's agenda is located on 2063 Aaron Way, case number PDR-120-3550. The applicant is proposing a complete facade remodel to an existing two-story single-family residence. The project will include no increase in square footage, simply all facade changes as best reflected in the elevations that the applicant has provided. The subject property was developed in 1978 with the total square footage being at 2,648 square feet. The residence contains an existing three-car garage, and the overall lot size is 35,270 square feet. The project proposes a facade renovation to the existing house. The existing home has a variety of roof pitch designs, including oversized gables and flat roofs. The facade renovation proposes to modify the window fenestration and remove wood siding and other elements original to the residence. Staff is recommending a return for redesign with following conditions. Staff feels upon multiple meetings with the applicant that this design would best fit with these 5 conditions. The applicant to reevaluate the amount of materials used throughout the front facade. Second being to propose and replace the existing wood siding with composite hardy board. Third, propose wood trim around the existing windows. Fourth, maintain the existing recessed front entry, perhaps with the addition of integrated canopy. And the 5th condition, propose treatment for the garage that would alleviate the top-heavy appearance and which better integrates with the overall design of the dwelling. Again, staff recommends a return for redesign with those 5 conditions. That does conclude my presentation. I'd be happy to answer questions at this moment.
Yeah, the last condition, is that in reference to the stone material on top of the garage door?
That's correct. And that is the stone work that's reflected on the material board.
Okay.
This?
That's correct.
Or that? Okay. So it's the balcony part.
You're referring to this, not this?
Oh, I'm sorry. This right here.
Okay.
This top portion.
Okay. Any other questions? I have only one card. Mr. Boldalian?
Good evening, Jean-Pierre. I'm the designer of the project, and good evening, Chair and Commissioners. Over the past several months, actually since last May, times flies, My client and I have been working with Gab and the staff in effort to exempt this project simple facade remodel. I guess our views of compatibility versus the planning division views of compatibility have led us to this meeting, which we decided with the client, then let's submit the plans for DRB in February. So I asked the board, look at the overall neighborhood context. You will see a number of residences with different lot sizes, different floor areas, and most importantly, different architectural styles. I would like the board to consider the variety of materials on the neighboring properties and understand my client's needs of blending in with the neighborhood. I feel that the proposed design modestly updates the residence without adding floor area, increasing the overall heights, or blocks the views of scenic vistas. No new city service will be requested as a result of this project, nor that there are any protected trees on the site. It's very simple, straightforward facade treatment. At this time, I would like to direct the staff, if you can, to display a couple of examples of neighborhood properties, all within the 300 linear feet for survey. It appears that we find stonework, smooth stuccos, large front entries, etc., on a number of the residences. I would like to, the staff, if you can show the address 2036 Aaron Way, 2054, and 2069, which is immediate neighbor residence. In general, we are proposing earth tone colors to complement of the hillside and a modest new walkway to help to tie this design together with a new walkway. I request that the board reconsider the return for redesign recommendation made by staff and approve this project with conditions. Thank you.
Anybody?
Any questions?
I have just one. Your clients, what was your charge? What did, got a house, they want to do a facade change.
I'm losing money right now.
You're losing money right now. No, I mean,
Chart.
Well, what did they say? They say, change my facade, and then this is what
Well-
you came up with? Or I'm trying to find out what the motivation was.
He's
that
not
brought
asking
to
you
today.
about
What's
money.
the charge?
No, he's...
Charge.
What was your
charge?
What was your scope of...
Scope of work. Thank you.
Sorry.
I think he...
The
think so,
client
right.
came,
Right.
the house is the house needs help. It's very old, and the wood is termite infested. They're falling apart. There's leaking problem. The windows, it's bad. And it's facing south. It's beating up with the sun. The house architecture has no significance. You could see it. You can't even call it a style with the shape of that roof and all that. May I approach?
Please.
So the client desire was to, we walked around the neighborhood. You see the cross. I would like to see this is, for example, let me talk. This is the neighbor next door. You can see, it has a wood sidings, and they removed it, they stuccoed it. If you go see it, it's a very badly done. The other house, 2036, please, Gab.
2036?
Yeah.
Twenty 36? Is there one that low? No, they're going down 48.
This one.
Yeah.
So you could see 2036. It's exactly the same replica of this house, my client's house. You could see what they've done. They've done the same thing. They have this humongous staircase straight going to the entrance, which I know the city planning doesn't like that. They have the grand entrance door. They use the stoneworks around the windows. That's one example for you guys to see, which is down the street. It's within that 300 linear feet. And the adjacent house from them directly, the 2050.
Across the street?
Across the street. It's a 5,000 square feet house, fully stucco smooth with stonework, with gates, etc., like a big mansion. So, my client didn't want that. They want a modest remodel. They have a budget. So we came up with clean up, remove the wood, clean up, have a smooth stucco, have the simple stonework, and a nice, not even a tall door. And this arch you see, it's not even offset. If you go to the plans, if you check the art, if you guys see the plan, this is the existing. You see this articulation, how badly done? It's not even symmetrical. What basically I've done in my proposal is I evened up this wall. I didn't even offset it out. It's the same house. They needed some kind of a canopy vestibule there to protect from rain and sun. So I'm not really going out. All I did is filling up a little post there, even up this symmetrical wall, and have a cover on top of the door. It's basically, that's the project.
What is the material around the windows? The window
Stone.
trim? Stone? And is that depicted here?
Yeah. This is the stone. This is the walkway. This is the caps.
Okay. So it's
Then
got-
this is the stone material. Yeah. Put it on there.
I see. Okay.
It's a very nice
What's the
done.
stone in the driveway?
Existing?
No, it's proposed to be stone.
It's pavers.
Random.
Pavers, mix of pavers and we're
It's
going
a stone tile.
stone. Actually, it's been so long that we for that.
Random stone tile.
Over here, we're going to do concrete and then we're going to insert it with stone. Same.
Is all the stone on the house going to be the same type of stone?
Correct.
'Cause some says tile, some says stone tile.
You're going to have a stone like a slate type or pavers. We haven't. It's going to be stone.
Like a ledger on the, above the garage? What kind of stone?
You're talking about this or this?
Where your fingers?
This portion, it's going to be stone, smooth tile stone, similar to the moldings type, which is depicted right here. Very simple. Initially, we wanted to do the whole this facade. This facade is too high. I can't do anything about it. That's existing. I can't. I have to work with it. I mean, we wanted initially to do this entire thing as a stone. Planning didn't want it. They didn't want it a stone, period. But then we said, let's propose this way. Once we decide if we were going to DRB, let the DRB decide if they like that stone or not.
There's no balcony above the garage, right?
No, it
So
was.
that railing
it
was
a-
ornamental.
Yeah, ornamental, we took it out.
All right. Any other questions? All right.
And the windows are, what sort of windows are you proposing? It says Milgard, but do you have a better idea of what the exact, if it's wood, fiberglass?
Right now, they have, some of the windows they have, it's existing fiberglass, so we're going to match it.
Okay.
We're going to match it.
Everything in the front is going to be one type of window?
One type of window,
Okay.
correct.
All right.
I mean, we tried to keep it to minimal. I mean, there's,
And the entry steps
Thank
are
you.
going to be concrete, stone, what?
it's going to be concrete.
Doesn't say, that's why.
Here's a picture
No,
of some
picture,
step
we're
threads.
Doing the threads stone.
Red stone.
It's all going to be blend in.
So is the idea to have a similar material, whether it's solid stone or some sort of a veneer of some sort for the stairs, all the articulation and the trim around the windows and around the garage doors and the driveway? Or are you proposing different materials?
They're different, but they're very similar that will blend into it. I mean, it's all stone material. There's no fake, there's no foam. They're all going to be true stone. We're not using any foams.
Is this picture just to indicate this, or is this the garage?
No,
that you're going-
indicates the
stonework
the stone around the
Okay.
garage.
All right. Other questions? Thank you, sir. All right. I don't see you have any other speakers. With that, I will close the hearing. Mr. Simonian, would you like to tackle this one?
Sure, I'll start on this one.
Thank you.
Well, we appreciate you guys taking the time to come out to DRB, and this is, I guess, something that's been going on for some time. That area of Emerald Isle has no specific style of architecture. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff that was built in the 80s, a lot of big stucco boxes, and a lot of it is nondescript, to put it mildly. And there's a haphazard sense to that whole neighborhood. Albeit they're great properties and they have great views, and their values are maintained. Albeit there's no cohesive design to that area. And that was really an outcome of really the 80s. I mean, everybody just built whatever they wanted to build up there. So as these homes are getting older and as they become prime for either remodels or renovations, whatnot, we're going to have more and more of these type of cases that come towards us. And that's probably why staff has spent so much effort and time on these kind of projects. And as a homeowner, you're probably thinking, I'm not doing anything. All I'm doing is just fixing the facade, and I have this old TNG wood siding on my south-facing facade that's falling apart, and there's mildew and there's rot, and I'm bettering the neighborhood. So what is the problem here? So we sense that. We understand the overall dialogue and so forth that's occurred. And at the same time, staff is basically trying to get a grip on that area. So moving forward, there's at least some sort of a cohesive integration with the city's design guidelines and so forth. So that's why there's this kind of tension that you've maybe have felt and the designer was referring to. And on top of that, you've been giving, or your home has a very unique shape to it. It kind of has this A-frame roof, and it has some very distinct features that unless you really go out of your way to renovate and remodel and redesign the facade, you kind of have to work with what's there. And that's what I'm sensing has occurred. And as I'm looking at the drawings, that's exactly what's happened is the designer has tried to at least maintain the rectilinear shape next to the entrance, has tried to kind of maintain the roof and the shape around the garage. And so it's a challenging project to dial in without doing some extensive work to it. And so when I start looking at a project like this, I try to look at the surrounding area, and I try to basically understand what is the most cohesive way one could go ahead and renovate the home, remodel the home, and at the same time blend in with the neighborhood. That area certainly has a lot of stucco, certainly has a lot of stone bases, stone veneers, whatever you want to call them. They tend to have grand entrances at times. And so I don't think the integration of the materials is the issue here. What I am recognizing is some features that staff is pointing out to that I think could be easily resolved to make it a little more cohesive of a design. And in that, there is this band up here is it's a bit troubling, because all of a sudden you have this heavy stone material up top, and usually stone material is at the base supporting weight. So I think if some of this material moved down, and then we ended up kind of having a stone base and a stone ribbon around the garage doors, it would probably work better. But overall, I don't think there is a huge problem with the way the stucco is applied or the way the entrance has been repositioned to be more symmetrical. But there's just this kind of language that needs refinement project. And so this kind of stone up top maybe could be worked at, or also By moving this ribbon down, I think it'll really free up this wall. I mean, it could be stucco up to here, and you could still maintain your crown molding, but it'd be nicer to maybe move that down. As far as the entrance, I don't have any specific concerns about it. I think it would be an asset to have a nice entrance as opposed to coming off of the driveway. I think that there's so many ways you could do this, and with your sloping front yard, this is the only place to do it. I would absolutely recommend fiberglass windows in the front, and if possible, to have them all copacetic and all the same material. The material board that's been provided to us actually depicts a lot nicer materials than the color elevations come off as, and so when we look at the color board and the material board, it's a very nice garage door. The stone steps are elegant. The number 9, which is the kind of building base, and the stucco use of it is nicely done. The detail, number 12, is nice. And as far as the surrounds of the garage, I think those are on the lighter side. So number 3, which depicts the stone around the garage, I think that proportionally could get bigger. And if it gets bigger, it gets wider, it makes more sense than having this little stone, because stone is supposed to symbolize a base of some sort, where a building sits on it. So you don't want to have small pieces of stone at the bottom, because it just looks funny. You want to have a bigger base, So if you're going to use stone, you got to make it look real, and the way to make it look real is to give it some substance and have it some more proportional to the overall building. And at the same time, you don't want to have stone on top of a building, which is what you've done on top of the garage. Because if you would imagine, stone needs to sit on the ground. And when stone is just glued on something at the top, it looks fake. And those are the concerns that are being raised here. So I think by reworking some of that area, this could be done. I think it's something that I would think the designer could work with staff on with some clear direction, especially more going with the material board as opposed to the color elevations. But I would love to hear what the rest of the group has to say.
Thank you. Ms. Palmer?
I totally agree with your comments, and when I looked at the color board, I felt it looked much softer, more compatible with the architecture. And I agree with the point about the stone at the base. I think if you do have stone, right now that garage stands out as a dark brown little rectangle, a little bit of stone around the edge. If that stone is at the base of that, it would tie in with the stone around the perimeter, and it would blend in with the house as opposed to just being a rectangle. I agree that the stone up above looks like it's just glued on. I don't have a problem with leaving it stucco, not putting the hardy board, as staff recommended. I would recommend, I don't have a problem with the entry. I would recommend that there be a landscape plan to go with this to complement, because that whole front slope is a one-to-one slope, and that's pretty dominant. There was something to help be more compatible with the house. And I really think in doing this, these colors are going to be very important, because what's proposed on the plan does not come across near as well, and that could make or break the project. I do agree that I think that the applicant could work with staff, come up with a better solution based on our comments.
Thank you. I agree also, I think, with my colleagues. I wandered through the neighborhood. I don't live in that area. I'm on the northwest, but I counted at least a half a dozen this same floor plan. And in fact, there's, I think, 2 or 3 in the pictures here.
One across the street.
Yeah,
but it has
yeah.
roof
A little
on it.
different, but it looks like it's predominantly. So, the pattern has been repeated through it. It's not necessarily so random as you might imagine. When I looked at it, I mean, to be honest, I looked at the house and I said, if I was going to go build a house and use these materials, it wouldn't look anything like this. This roof, to me, looked like it calls for a Bavarian timbered and stuccoed look. I mean, that's that type of roof. You see that in that type of construction. That may not be the direction that the applicant wants to go, but I think I have no trouble with the walkways, the entrance. That's not a real problem. I think the the garage doors, that area above the garage doors there, which we've been discussing. It does, to me, look like things were kind of just put on, the consistency or the flow-through. I mean, I'm not an architect, but when I looked at it, the existing drawing looks a little more uniform as opposed to what now has been proposed. So I think a combination of a choice. I don't know if it's a material. I don't quite know why it looks like it, but it just does. It looks not cohesive, I guess is the term I'm looking for. One thing I thought was an eyebrow or something over the garage door, something bringing this whole line down above, from the roof line or the balcony, the pseudo balcony down. There are a couple other notes. I would not support vinyl windows that were listed on the schedule. The fiberglass is a good idea. I'm always big on wood, seeing wood, but the applicant was looking for stone. That's fine. And I think that's my total comments. Because you have the look over there. You're okay with our notes, or are you? There was no. Oh, is it rebuttal?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and read back your comments. We may have a concern, a code issue about the railing for the stair that Mr. Baxter and Mr. Reza will talk about as we review your comments.
Okay.
So what we're hearing is that the materials as shown on the material board are all acceptable. They're cohesive enough, even though there are a variety of materials. Is that what we're hearing? Sorry, I'm going to go down through the staff recommended conditions and revise them based on what we've just heard. The first one is reevaluate the number of materials used throughout the front facade. It sounds from your comments that the materials shown on the material board, those all seem to work together. Is that what we're hearing, with the possible exception of the stone trim around the garage door?
I think they would work together if the colors are
Compatible.
close to each other.
Yeah.
Not to have a white and then a dark color right next to it, but a blending of those colors. And I think that would make a big difference with stone. Okay,
so if we were to revise condition number 1, reevaluate the color of materials throughout the front facade and make sure they're consistent throughout.
Texture, consistency.
Color and texture are consistent throughout.
That doesn't mean they are all the same.
Right.
They're compatible.
Okay. I think color and texture consistent throughout will help us. We'll strike condition number 2 because we don't really hear that there's any need that the board has for hardy board. We didn't hear anything about the proposed trim around the windows, so
Well, if we weren't proposing wood, I don't think we would put the wood trim, introduce that with the stone. I think that's where we would come.
Okay, so what's being proposed is a stone trim around the window, and that's acceptable?
Well, and that's, yeah, and it's something that I think could be refined a bit more, because I think as we look at the elevation, just proportionally in the colors, they look odd. But the material board, what's been presented, the materials look more elegant and more refined. So then it becomes a task of blending them together. And so whether they decide to go with more stone at the base and around the garage door and more of some sort of ornamental, say, trim around the windows, doesn't have to be wood, because wood won't really go with the stucco, but some sort of a more elegant trim around the windows that's compatible with the style that they're going, could work. However, if they're doing the stone, it needs to be thought out because you have a lot of stone and it's the same proportion and the same thickness around the garage door, around the windows, at the lower portion, at the top portion, and also that ornamental feature on top of the front door. It could be a bit much. And so I think that would be what the designer should work with the architect, with the staff on, is refining that.
Okay. I'm sorry to get down in the weeds here, but because this is a facade remodel, and it sounds like we'll be working together with the applicant, we need to be really clear about what your intentions are. So it seems like because they're using stone elsewhere on the project, you're not opposed to stone trim around the windows. They may be limited in the space around some of the windows and what the dimension could be. I'm wondering if, I'm sorry I don't have the benefit of having the material board in front of me, but if there was a simple cast stone trim around the windows, which would perhaps blend in with the rest of the stone that you're recommending around the base, but be maybe a little bit better, a little bit more subtle around the windows and work with the stucco. Is that what we're hearing?
Yes.
So, okay, so what we're hearing is that the trim that's shown, for example, on the material boards as number 3, but that's labeled as stone tile staggered rather than a cast stone, which is more typically what we see around the windows. So would you...
I think the descriptions, that's where I was having a problem. The descriptions of the stone are, as I interpreted them, are different than the architect. Like when I asked about the tile stone, no, it's a paver stone. So I think there needs to be a clear definition as to what they're...
Yeah, I guess it looks to me, to my eye, that the photograph does show a tile around the garage and not the typical, kind of more monolithic cast stone that we would see around a window. So am I hearing that, for example, while the stone tile around the base and around the garage door might be appropriate, that perhaps a cast stone detail around the windows would be preferred? Okay.
Especially because the spacing is so close to one another, it would be a bit much.
I think it's going to be
use.
difficult to make that look good. Okay, so that's what we're hearing. So that, so condition number 3 is a consideration rather than a condition?
Yeah, hey, if they go back and figure out a way to make wood work, it works for them. I have no problem with wood.
But consider a cast stone detail rather than a staggered tile detail around the windows. Okay. And number 4, it seems like that's an 8x, that's called out on the material board as an 8x16 stone that's not identified with a photograph on the material board. It was staff's feeling that the way that is managed, the way that it sits a couple of feet above the opening of the door, the heaviness of that didn't really work with the design of the rest of the facade, but it sounds like the way it's drawn is fine with the board and it can be carried out in the way that it's drawn. Is that what we're hearing? Okay.
You're talking about number 9, right, as indicated on the elevation?
I believe, yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's what they have a picture of with that ribbed horizontal stucco look, right? Is that what that is?
Yeah, they're labeling it as 8x16 stone, and I guess, number 9 is a picture on the lower corner. That's right.
So again, I think it's a discrepancy. There's a discrepancy in the descriptions.
The description,
Right.
but
But
the
the pictures-
the photograph is okay with you, and
Yeah.
the placement a couple feet above the door opening is also okay with you.
The same thing with that little vertical rectangle above the door. It shows a crisscross pattern of stone. I'm not sure if that's really what you're intending. Number 8?
Still decorative.
No, oh, that's above the stone treatment above the entry.
It says it's stone and it's a crisscross pattern, so are we sure that's what's...
It could be a travertine kind of 3-inch by 3-inch diagonal.
It's
Yeah,
just not
in
clear.
we don't have any sample of that.
Right.
It's just not clear.
The area right above the door opening is also not labeled, so we're assuming that that's stucco. And that's fine with the board, the way it's shown. Okay, so we'll strike condition number 4, because it sounds like the way the entry is drawn and shown, and the materials shown are sufficient for the board. And then
And if the designer feels you could do, instead of above the door, instead of stucco, it could be clear glass. It could be some sort of a glass with ornamental, metal front of it as well, which might be a little more conducive to the style than just stucco.
Okay, so we'll include a consideration that directly above the door opening and below the stone surround, consider a glass light ornamental glazing in that panel rather than stucco.
Clear glazing with some sort of an ornamental feature front of it.
Clear glazing with some sort of ornamental feature in lieu of the stucco.
It's a consideration.
And then item 5, I think we had the most discussion about that, to eliminate the stone coursing shown on the very top of that piece below where the second-story windows are. And we're not sure if it was a condition or a consideration to provide a stone base and a wider surround around the door. Is that first of all, did we get it right, or is it a consideration or a condition?
I think, go ahead.
Honestly, I think that was as an alternate to that heavy look, to bring it down to the base somehow.
It seemed like there was agreement that top banding of stone should be eliminated and a stone base be employed with a thicker banding around the garage
That
doors.
works, but definitely the stone at the top.
Because if it is eliminated, and you just simply get a wider stone base that basically surrounds the garage door like so, you could even pop this out a little bit. You could have some lights, but in the soffit area, which would be elegant. And so doing, you get your stone, you get your rich look, and at the same time, you don't have stone in the air, which looks funny. And then you could have kind of a top crown and then a different kind of a feature here. So you're kind of going back to this kind of a look with stucco or some sort of a stone, some sort of a filler that you've used around your windows in here. So you could just integrate it like that, but giving it more of a heavy base where it's more cohesive.
So when you're using the term base, you're referring to what's shown as this surround. You're not suggesting there would be stone.
It could
Here.
be, but
Mr. Simonian, much like the existing brick that's there right
Stone on
now,
the right side of the base.
would it be okay if we direct the applicant to mimic the location of stone, which is currently an existing feature?
I wouldn't say mimic. They have to work on it, and they go back and forth. But I think a solution could be brought forward that makes sense, where stone is integrated more as a base as opposed to a veneer.
So, So, as a condition, the stone at the top of that element will be eliminated, and consider it more of a substantial stone treatment at the around the garage doors and potentially at the base, with some flexibility for the dimension, the height and dimension of that stone. But what we did here is that stone around the doors should be a little bit more substantial, and it should be closer to the ground. Does that sound right? And that sounds like it's a condition rather than a consideration. And we also heard a condition for a landscape plan for the front yard.
And it needs to be, you need to consider they've got 2 ornamental pear trees out in front. So when you talk about doing a xeriscape or drought-tolerant landscaping, it has to be compatible with the existing trees.
Okay, so the existing pear trees are to remain, and then
If they choose to do so.
okay, and provide landscape for the front yard. And then maybe we can hear from Gabe and/or Roger in regards to the code issues on the stair.
Okay, Mr. Chair, members of the Design Review Board, the applicant has suggested an 18-inch high wall that will basically follow the steps on grade. The drawings indicate a wall with an overall height of 19 inches, which pushes the limit within the front setback. So the applicant will just have to reduce that slightly. It's 18-inch max height with a cap that is drawn here. So it's just going to have to go down, maybe removal of the cap or lower it. Just lower it just a little bit. But it.
The code on stairs?
Yes, if they do need a hand railing, then we get into some issues. But my understanding for steps on grade, the wider the steps on grade building will not require. That's kind of how other walkways in the area. Yes, it's the width.
So, Gabe, how would you craft a condition so that we're all clear on what that front stair is required to do?
Okay, to the stairs to be required to meet all zoning.
Well,
And-
let's be a little bit more
Okay.
specific.
Okay.
Lower the height of the wall surrounding the entry stairs so it meets code to maximum height of 18
Of 18 inches, not to exceed 18 inches. Okay, I could do that.
I have closed the hearing. Do you have a comment that you would like to,
You have to come up, though. There's
step on up here. I'll open it again. You don't really do that, but, all right.
Thank you. I just want to make sure to clarify, all your comments will take, it's doable. I just want to make one point, that stone above the garage, that band we had, I mean, at one point we wanted to do the whole thing to make it look that heavy, like I agree with Art and Judy, but on and on we had that struggle with the staff. They didn't want the stones. They wanted the wood sidings, and that's why we are here today. Because I just want to say that when we first met with the staff, how could we do the simple remodel of this project with the minimal thing to be not even going where to go and to the DRB? And the reason we are here is because we said we don't want those sidings and all that. That's why we are here today. And I feel that the board and the commission and you guys are okay with my initial proposal. And also, I would like to, regarding the garage, the trims, it's all stone moldings. I know there's some kind of confusion you guys having between the material board and what I have on the plans. It's exactly what we have on the material board. It's going to be mimicked on the proposed project. I'm okay with the landscaping plan. We'll have a landscaping plan done. We're okay with the fiberglass windows. We have no problem. Actually, we're going to do. The railing is it's a technical technical mistake for the height. I know it's 18 inch. I don't know how somehow it got a little bit 1 inch or a couple of inch higher because of the cap. So we will lower that. We know the code. The colors will be consistent. I mean, this is a very simple project. The wall's going to be smooth, and the surrounding of the windows going to be stone, molding stones, nicely done, very simple. The reason we didn't go more extravagant because the board, the Glendale, I know I was part of the commission, they don't like moldings, and they don't like this type of design. So we try to keep it as simple as possible. And the stair, so we'll work with whatever you guys putting in the condition. I don't have any problem. It's workable. So, and coming to, there's no tiles.
I think it's just that
It can be simpler than this, what we're
it's
proposing.
not clear to any of us, I don't think.
So I just want to make sure clear, the whole project is smooth finish, and the surrounding will be molding stone, very simple design. And surrounding the garage door, we didn't know what to, that wall is kind of a very challenging. We didn't know what to do. Either we wanted to do the whole stone or leave it all empty. So we have it.
All right, you got something to go back and give some consideration to then, sir. All right.
Well, I'm ready to work with staff. We've been trying.
Okay.
So
Well,
I
hopefully
don't
this
wanna-
direction will help what you're getting from us.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
You know, in staff's defense, I think there was just a lot of discrepancies that it took us a while to figure out. So I think that's why there was a lot of going back and forth. So staff, I think, does a pretty good job overall. They try to help and accommodate. It just, when there's some discrepancies, it takes a little while, such as an hour, to understand. So, but I believe there's enough dialogue and enough direction so that you'll be able to come back fairly quickly, submit something, and try to get you guys renovated, and maybe by, September, you'll be having a party at your new home.
Yeah, may I say something? Am I allowed to say something?
We actually had closed the public hearing, but you're the owner?
Yes.
It's open. Come on up. Best to do this earlier rather than later, but
Anyway,
thank you.
it will be only a minute.
He's going to give you a slip. Sir, can you please give your name for the record?
Yeah, it's Vartkes Tavlian.
You can fill that out.
Fill it out later and turn it in.
Okay. I'm really surprised with all the comments you guys made. My goodness, you're detail-oriented. I'm impressed, even though some of the comments I don't like, but of course I appreciate, the rules and regulations one has to observe in Glendale. Now, I appreciate what you did, but you also have to appreciate my concerns. Now, as my architect said, the place is falling apart. All the wood is, I'm not taking any action for the last 9 months, waiting the result of this meeting. So what I suggest and push, if you guys coordinate with my architect as soon as possible to get this thing rolling, so by winter, I will have protection enough so my house will not fall apart, and I'm not exaggerating. That's all I request. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sorry. One more.
Come on, one more trip to the well. Thank you.
I just want to say something. The next door neighbor, can you put the next door house? Sure. No, the next door. Can we put the next door? I just want to make a comment. That's the last one.
Okay.
Promise. And then you guys
That
decide.
one or the other one?
The other one.
The other direction. The other direction.
That one. The stucco one.
Oh, I'm sorry. Down the street.
That house next door, I just wanted to look at it. This house, you see the stair and everything?
Yeah.
This house was cited. And then it was brought to the board, to the city of Glendale, and it was approved to be exempt from DRB of removal of the siding woods, and they've done all that work, and it was exempt from DRB. And my initial argument with the staff was to work to come up with the simple design. They said, no, you have to go to DRB because you want to remove the sidings. Where we have a neighbor did illegal work, and he was awarded for his illegal activities, building without a permit. He was awarded by the planning staff to be exempted from DRB,
Okay.
plus removal of the sidings, and to do all that work. And I would like the planning department staff to explain to my clients how come someone in Glendale does illegal construction, then goes to the city with a citation, be exempted from DRB, plus, okay, remove the sidings, it's okay, we'll give you a permit, you could do whatever you want to do. When I'm here, I'm okay with all your comments, I appreciate it, I will do it, all of it, but I would appreciate that you guys decide that we do all that comment with the condition, I'm okay with it, it's a simple thing, with the condition approval. I would hate to come back and waste another 3 months. We've been working on this since May, and it took the staff 3.5 months to give us this date. Usually it should be 4 weeks, 8 weeks. It was 3.5 months to get this date to be in front of you guys. It's ridiculous, in my opinion. I have total respect to you guys, and I hope you guys make the right decision tonight to approve this project with the conditions that you guys want to do. I'm not going to disagree on it, and we move on with it. But I will really hate to come back when you have other projects in the area are similar to it, and they've been extremely renovated with the extent. And this project is 1/3 of what the neighbors have done in the area, with a permit or without a permit. So thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, with that, I'm going to close the public hearing. Entertain a motion.
Well, I think the way the conversation was going, we were going to approve with conditions. So I think that's where my...
I was ready for that
Yeah,
15 minutes ago.
We can't have cross-communication.
No, I
We
think
just
there
cannot
was a
have
lot of-
cross-communication. Please respect that. At the end of the day, I think we've discussed this quite a bit, so I would like to make a motion to approve the project with the conditions as stated by staff.
We just want to mention that there was, I think, a couple of items that we didn't read back that were included in your conversation. All the windows to be fiberglass, which I think the applicant has recognized and agreed to. And the stair, just to make sure we all are clear about that, to lower the height of the wall around the stair and the setback to comply with the zoning code, and design the stair to be at grade so as not to require a handrail or guardrail.
Thank you, Ms. Wright.
I just want to comment that I think the applicant might have misunderstood, but we were trying to get across as many comments and discussion with staff as possible to allow this to be approved and let staff work with it.
And we greatly appreciate the direction, because as the board mentioned, these projects are really challenging for staff, because there isn't a lot of precedent in the neighborhood. There are homes that are a little bit newer than the ones that we've seen in the past, and remodeling them. What we try and do is, at the staff level, is predict what the board will say by what you've said in the past. So what you've told us today is very instructive. Very often when an applicant would like to remove siding from a project, when they come to you, very often the board will say, no, we really don't want the project to be all stucco. The siding gives a great deal of character. The project next door we've worked is a very different case, very different scope of work. We've worked back and forth with that applicant too, and continue to work with that applicant. We want to make it very clear to everyone that it's not easier to ask for forgiveness than for permission, and we do very much appreciate the applicants coming in and working with us, and we look forward to working with them in the future to get their project through the process. Thank you.
I just want to add one comment to the architect's mention of the house next door that apparently was done without permits. With the current budget situation in Glendale, or reduction in staff, it's incumbent upon the neighbors to call the city when construction starts and ask if there's a permit been pulled, because if it's stopped early on, we won't be having this type of, well, they let them build that next door, we can't build it. So I encourage all of our community to keep their eyes open. Is there a second to that motion? There was a second. We have a motion and a second.
Motion by Mr. Simonian, motion seconded by Ms. Palmer, this will be roll call. Ms. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Simone?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Motion carries for approval, 3-0.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. With that, I don't believe we have anything else on our agenda.
Yeah, I think we'll.
design guidelines that are in front of us.
Yes, I mean,
Yes, this is the final of the comprehensive design guidelines that have been adopted November 29th by the City Council. So now you have your own hard copies.
That's wonderful.
For your weekend reading pleasure.
make some notes and get back.
And we thank you for all the comments that you made on the guidelines when they were in process. We greatly appreciate your direction.
And I'd like to take a moment and really congratulate staff on these comprehensive design guidelines. I know you guys spend a lot of time on it, a lot of efforts, a lot of collaboration with community members, professionals, and the leaders of the communities. And I think this is just a wonderful tool for us to use during the next 10 years. I think, it goes
Thank you
without
very
saying,
much
you
for that.
did a wonderful job.
Yeah, and the APA Los Angeles chapter has recognized them with an award of merit as well. So,
Congratulations. And I'd like to have one more comment as well. There was some dialogue earlier from the applicant about really the notion of it's easier to ask for forgiveness than to come in front of DRB. And I'd like to comment on that just because there has been many instances where people have done illegal construction without a permit, and this board has basically asked them to not only go back and tear down what was done, but to go back and tear down and restart with new building permits, which is just very difficult. There was a case not too long ago that someone had put on a second story without any permits, and that individual had to resubmit drawings and then get building inspectors to go in and actually inspect all the work, which is, you could imagine, is just...
And tear the house down.
And tear the house down, which is very difficult to open up all the walls, to expose all the plumbing and all the electrical wires and all the structural components. And so it is certainly much easier to come forward from the get-go and to get an architect that understands the city and works with staff and designs a renovation that's compatible with the city's guidelines. And staff's done a great job putting this together, these comprehensive design guidelines for the city of Glendale, and it's a great tool. And homeowners and designers and architects could go through it, and it gives you a great idea of what we're looking for. And so I disagree with what was said earlier, and I just wanted to bring that up.
Thank you.
I think that was in the heat of the moment.
I think so as well.
Are the guidelines available online if anybody listening wants to take a look at them?
yes, they are.
Great. At the planning divisions, someplace on the city's website, right?
They are on the city's website, on the Planning Division website, and we are making certain that all of the guidelines that they superseded are pulled down, and that's, if we don't have all those references yet correct, we're making sure that all of the links go to these guidelines and the North Glendale Community Plan that was also adopted at the same time.
Gotcha. Right. All right. Anybody want to?
I move that we adjourn.